Good morning. Today is July 10th, 2026. This is Just Listen Live, hosted by George Goodman. Welcome to the podcast. And as usual, I want to plug you guys talking to other people about my podcast and how relevant it is, and then getting people to subscribe. I'm on Mondays and Fridays. I did miss one Friday. I think it was around July 4th, but everybody understands why I was doing that. And because I wanted to have fun. And it is fun doing the podcast. However, that day I wanted to have some more fun. Okay, so let's get into this. We're talking about local politics for this part of Illinois, Southern Illinois. You know, I am in the north part of Illinois this week. The people are really nice. I randomly ask people questions because that's just what I do. And they pretty much feel like we do in the southern Metro East part of the state. So maybe there's some opportunities out there for people that we are not aware of, meaning with the midterms coming up. All right, so what are the candidates up to? So this week, the governor, Pritzker, is talking about uh, on his record of a middle class tax relief. He is highlighting state achievements like the elimination of the sales tax on groceries, the expansion of the child tax credit, and targeted measures to lower prescription drug costs. Well, as far as I know, the grocery tax that the state was doing was only for 6 months. That's why you guys need to go out in Illinois and really look at these people's websites and get more context of what they're actually what he says that he's doing. All right. Prescription drug costs, that's dicey at best. And they actually did do something for that to lower the prices, but it was very targeted. So you may have to look at if you were even eligible for that. All right. So the Republican candidate, Darren Bailey, he's focusing heavily on reducing overall government spending and cutting taxes. And his running mate is actively courting suburban voters by attacking the state's sanctuary status and calling for stricter crime policies and direct cooperation with ICE. Okay, well, um, you're going to have to go out to the Republican nominee's website to see what he means by reducing overall government spending and cutting taxes. In Illinois, that's a little hard to do. It seems like to me that the budget is pretty complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces. One of the main ones that I think that each candidate should be talking about is the teachers and pensions and making sure that they are getting their pensions. That, in my opinion, would be the number one priority because with pensions, people need that after they retire so that they can survive in this economy. And also, they would need, if you're over 65, maybe some tax relief on the property taxes as well. None of the candidates are talking about that. The state sanctuary status, the the guy who's running for attorney general. That's why I keep plugging it. They could challenge that in court. See, that's why I keep saying, and it is weird that the attorney general and the secretary of state, you hear no information about them unless you go to their website. And I would submit to you that they're not really campaigning that heavily because they feel very confident about November, which is bad news for the Republicans and the Republican Party. Some of these things, especially with the Attorney General, they could weigh in on that almost immediately. But I don't think that a lot of people in Illinois realize that the Secretary of State and the Attorney General run separately. They're not appointed by the governor. So we have a chance to really do something. All right. So with the Senate seat, her platform focuses on constituent services, federal protections for reproductive rights, and expanding economic opportunities for minority owned businesses. That's what the Democrat is focused on. Um, how about the rest of your constituents for businesses? Federal protections for reproductive rights. There's really nothing new on that at the federal level. And there's nothing that's going to be changed. So I don't understand that. But I will say that the real fight for the Senate is in two or three states, one of them being Maine. And what I don't understand is why nationally for the Senate, they're not even doing anything in this state. The Republican Party isn't, because I think that for that US Senate seat, so remember something. The Democrat is a progressive Democrat. The guy, Senator Dick Durbin, was the last of the conservative Democrats. They're totally different. And if anybody would have been watching nationally, they're vulnerable. They should have, and the candidate running for the Senate on the Republican side is not bad. All right. So he's aligned himself with federal conservative policies about securing the southern border, rolling back corporate regulations, lowering consumer prices, and advocating for energy independence. So that lines up nationally with what the US Senate wants to do. So why aren't the Republicans saying, yeah, this guy he could give us a shot at a seat? So I think maybe that they need to clean house in the Republican Party uh, party bosses and stuff. I don't understand that at all. So that's what they're talking about. Sorry, see it as a missed opportunity to turn red. There are probably 400,000 votes from that. And I've seen no commercials. And also, are they forgetting that there's uh, the other part of the state outside of Cook County? Because it seems like this year they're just campaigning there. And I just don't think that they can win there. If you split Cook County in half, and if you look at how people voted the last 8 to 12 years, you can see that people are pretty well split. The Democrats may have a little bit of an edge, maybe 200,000, but you can make that up in the rest of the state. So they're just not campaigning here. It's just Cook County. That's why a lot of people feel alienated in the rest of the state. And that's why people don't vote, because their impression is that on the Republican side, especially, they don't come out and talk to us in Southern Illinois about any issues. And we feel like that we're not part of being in Illinois. And it's a missed opportunity if you are on the Republican side. All right. So there's a lot of statewide executive offices and Chicago school board races, but that's more local. We have them in Southern Illinois as well. So those people will probably put signs out. I say probably August. So we'll see what happens with people campaigning starting in July. Now, I want to mention something real quick. Even though the state legislature of Illinois is out of session, there's actually a couple of things going on, or party bosses. So the GOP, my leader, is talking about uh, they want more legislative transparency reforms. All right. So this follows the July 3rd resignation of Democratic Representative Harry Benton over internal sexual harassment report, coupled with separate criminal allegations against another House Democrat. Republicans are using these scandals to challenge the Democrat supermajority's accountability. Okay, so that's terrible that we have people in the state house like that, but do you think that that's the best way to do it? Why aren't they out in these guys' districts trying to recruit people to run as the opposing party, like, and build a consensus and turn the seats that way? Sitting in the state house and just pointing fingers, I don't really see how that changes who's in charge. And of course, the Democrats are going to say, well, people make mistakes all the time. So you really need to take that to the people, whichever district Harry Benton is in, maybe take it to those people. All right, here's the next one: semi automatic weapons ban upheld. So, in case you didn't know, this is gun control has resurfaced. All right, so the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit upheld Illinois' ban on assault weapons and high capacity magazines. So that's really important in Illinois for the Democrat. So the governor and the attorney general are celebrating the ruling as a monumental victory for public safety. Republican challenges and gun rights advocates continue to attack the law as unconstitutional, promising to support dependent appeals heading to the U.S. Supreme Court, which is correct. Now, in case you aren't aware, normally when you go to the Court of Appeals, so the courts are regionally uh, set up. So it's not surprising that the Seventh Circuit upheld Illinois' ban on assault weapons and high capacity. Now, when this gets to the Supreme Court, that's going to be a different uh, conversation. All different conversation. Why? Because of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment never talks about what kind of weapons and magazines and all of that stuff. And I predict, based on the facts, that the Supreme Court is going to overturn this ban on assault weapons. What a lot of people have forgotten is during the Clinton administration, Congress actually passed a law banning assault weapons, and the Supreme Court overturned it. So, quite frankly, the Republicans aren't really worried because once it reaches the Supreme Court, it has nothing to do with who's sitting on the court. So, if you look at the nine justices, 9 times out of 10, they're actually looking at the law. Now, there's a couple of biased ones in there, maybe two of them. Okay. But the semi weapons ban will be in effect for maybe another year, maybe a year and a half. the Supreme Court will probably rule on it um, right before the next election in 2028. Now, let me mention something to you as well. My plug for the Attorney General position. Remember, the Attorney General is Kwame Raoul, and he was the one that, after the legislature passed it, he had to to the U.S. Court of Appeals. So if you had a Republican in there, it would have never have gotten that far. The attorney general would have taken it to court and then have put it before the Supreme Court in Illinois, and possibly it would have been defeated at that point. That's why it matters who's in which office. And again, plugging it, I know that you might be tired of me saying it, but it's true. The attorney general position, if you're looking at the laws that you don't like or you won't challenge, that's the position to start to change in. All right. And then they're looking at campaign finance, out of state money. That's always going to be an issue around the United States. So as we get closer to the midterms, maybe I'll do a U.S. government policy on campaign finance. It's been around since and it's nothing new. And basically, what it is that people in other states, these people with all of this money, can pump money in your state to get whoever they want elected. So both parties do that. So I don't think that it's ever going to change. Maybe it'll change for 4 years and then it'll go back the other way, etc. Because it is really expensive to run for a campaign. Okay, so this is Just Listen Live, hosted by George Goodman. I was pretty brief there, 11 minutes. So we're working on the time, and it was very specific. So have a great weekend, and I will talk to you again on Monday. Have a great weekend, guys.